"Step aside, sir. We need to conduct a thorough inspection before you board." Officer Calvin Monroe's cold command cut through the bustling noise of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport as he blocked Malik Townsend's path on the narrow jet bridge. Malik's hand tightened slightly on his leather briefcase, the only external sign of his surprise. He stood perfectly still, his tailored navy suit and quiet confidence a stark contrast to Monroe's aggressive stance. "Excuse me?" Malik's voice remained level, controlled. "Is there a problem with my boarding pass?" "This is a random security procedure," Monroe replied, though his eyes never met Malik's. Instead, they swept dismissively over his expensive watch, his polished shoes, his confident posture, as if cataloguing items that didn't belong together. Behind them, a stream of passengers continued boarding the Atlanta-bound flight. A middle-aged white businessman nodded casually to Monroe as he passed. A white family with 2 small children moved past without a second glance. An elderly white couple with matching luggage received smiles from the flight attendant visible at the plane's entrance. Not one was stopped, not one was questioned. "I've been through security already," Malik stated calmly, gesturing toward the terminal behind them. "I've complied with all airport protocols." Monroe stepped closer, invading Malik's personal space. "Sir, when I say inspection, I mean inspection. Your compliance isn't optional." Passengers slowed as they passed, some pretending not to notice, others openly staring. A young woman pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the record button. Malik took a deliberate breath. This wasn't his first encounter with prejudice, but here, suspended between terminal and aircraft, between Atlanta and New York, between compliance and dignity, he made a decision. With steady hands, he placed his briefcase on the floor and retrieved his own phone. "I'll comply with legitimate security procedures," he said, voice clear enough for all witnesses to hear, "but I'll also document this interaction." Monroe's face hardened. "You think your fancy suit and attitude change anything about who you are? Have you ever been judged before someone even knew your name? This black millionaire's encounter with airport discrimination would spark a movement no one saw coming. Every day in America, people face judgment based solely on their appearance, not their character, not their accomplishments, just their skin color. The scene you just witnessed happens more frequently than most want to acknowledge. Racial profiling doesn't discriminate between everyday citizens and successful entrepreneurs. It strikes without warning, without logic, and without justice. But what if the tables suddenly turned? In the next few minutes, you'll witness how one man's dignity in the face of blatant discrimination transformed not just that moment, but sparked a nationwide conversation about respect, equality, and accountability. If you believe everyone deserves equal treatment, regardless of skin color, hit subscribe now. This channel brings you powerful stories of racial justice that mainstream media often overlooks. What Officer Monroe didn't realize about Malik Townsend would change everything. The powerful businessman he tried to humiliate wasn't just any passenger, and his response would shake an entire system to its core. Stay with me to discover exactly what happened when this airport agent's prejudice collided with a force he never expected. 25 years before that humiliating moment on the jet bridge, Malik Townsend stood behind the counter of his uncle's corner store in southwest Atlanta. Just 16, he balanced school with long hours helping the family business stay afloat in a neighborhood many had written off. "Remember, nephew," his uncle would say, counting the day's modest earnings, "success isn't just about making money. It's about lifting others as you climb." Those words became Malik's North Star. From saving every dollar to attend Georgia State University, to launching his first tech startup from a cramped apartment shared with 3 roommates, Malik's path was defined by relentless determination. By 30, his software company, Townsend Solutions, had secured contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. By 35, he'd expanded into sustainable real estate development, transforming abandoned buildings in his childhood neighborhood into affordable housing and business incubators. Now at 43, Malik's holdings exceeded $75 million, but his impact couldn't be measured in dollars alone. His foundation had funded college scholarships for over 200 students from low-income backgrounds. His mentorship program connected young black entrepreneurs with resources and networks previously closed to them. Malik doesn't just write checks, Atlanta City Councilwoman Janelle Porter once remarked. He shows up. He listens. He builds bridges between communities that rarely connect. Despite his success, Malik maintained a low profile. No flashy cars or public displays of wealth. His power resided in his actions, his integrity, and his unwavering commitment to creating opportunities for others. The morning before his airport encounter, Malik had concluded 3 days of meetings in New York with potential investors for his most ambitious project yet, a $30 million innovation hub in Atlanta's historically black West Side neighborhood. The facility would provide technology training, startup capital, and business development resources to residents often excluded from the digital economy. As his flight to Atlanta was called, Malik's mind had been filled with possibilities. The faces of young people who would find pathways to careers, families who would build generational wealth, communities that would transform through collective opportunity. He never expected that his journey home would become a different kind of turning point, one that would test his resolve and ultimately expand his mission in ways he couldn't have imagined. "Turn that phone off immediately," Officer Monroe demanded, his hand moving toward Malik's device. The narrow walls of the jet bridge seemed to close in as tension thickened the air. "I have every right to document this interaction," Malik replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He held the phone slightly higher, ensuring a clear view of Monroe's face and badge number. "You're delaying boarding procedures," Monroe said, voice rising. "Either comply with the inspection or step out of line." By now the flow of passengers had slowed to a crawl. Those already aboard peered through windows. Those behind Malik shifted uncomfortably, creating a small clearing around the confrontation. Among them stood Imani Reed, a civil rights attorney returning from a conference. Her practiced eye recognized the situation immediately. She moved closer, positioning herself where both men could see her watching. "Is there a reason this gentleman is being singled out?" she asked, her professional tone slicing through the tension. Monroe barely glanced at her. "This is official airport security business, ma'am. Please continue boarding." An elderly gentleman with silver hair and a worn leather briefcase stepped forward. "I've flown this route weekly for 15 years, he said, his southern accent thick with disapproval. "Never once seen anyone stopped on the jet bridge. Curious timing, wouldn't you say?" Monroe's face flushed. "Sir, for all we know, this individual could be carrying prohibited items. We received intelligence." "Intelligence?" Malik repeated, his composure intact though his heart raced. "Or assumptions? Because I've noticed several passengers board without inspection." Monroe stepped closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "Listen, I don't know how you could afford a first-class ticket, but something doesn't add up. People like you raise flags in our system." "People like me?" Malik kept his phone steady, capturing every word. A flight attendant appeared at the aircraft door, concern etched across her face. "Is there a problem here? We need to complete boarding." "No problem," Monroe replied, straightening his posture. "Just conducting a random security check." On the jet bridge, after TSA clearance. The flight attendant frowned. Whispers rippled through the growing audience. A woman in a business suit murmured to her companion, "This is completely inappropriate." Another passenger nodded, adding, "I'm feeling uncomfortable witnessing this." Monroe's hand moved to rest on his holstered weapon, a subtle intimidation tactic that didn't go unnoticed. "Sir," he said to Malik, voice harder now, "final warning. Put away your phone and submit to inspection, or you won't be flying today." Imani Reed stepped fully into view, her own phone now recording. "Officer, I'd like your name and badge number clearly stated for the record." Other phones emerged from the crowd like fireflies at dusk, their camera lenses focused on the scene. What had begun as one man's humiliation was transforming into collective witness. Malik stood perfectly still, the eye of a growing storm, his dignity a shield against Monroe's escalating hostility. "I'll ask once more," he said, each word deliberate and clear. "What specific reason do you have for stopping only me?" The standoff might have continued if not for the sudden appearance of a man in a crisp white shirt and airport security blazer. Rafael Delgado, airport security supervisor, approached with quick, purposeful steps. "What's happening here, Officer Monroe?" His voice was low but carried authority that immediately shifted the energy on the jet bridge. Monroe straightened. "Standard security procedure, sir. Passenger was flagged for—" "Flagged by whom?" Delgado interrupted, glancing at the multiple phones recording the scene. "I received no alert about enhanced screening at this gate." "It was a judgment call," Monroe said, his confidence visibly wavering. "Something didn't feel right about—" "About what exactly?" Delgado pressed. A passenger who had been silently observing stepped forward. "Sir, I boarded right before this gentleman. No one stopped me." 3 others nodded in agreement, one adding, "Same here, walked right through." Delgado's expression hardened as he surveyed the situation. Malik standing calmly despite the public spectacle, Monroe's increasingly defensive posture, the gathering witnesses with their documentary evidence. "Mr. Delgado turned to Malik. "Townsend." "Malik Townsend," he supplied, his dignity intact despite the humiliation of being detained before dozens of strangers. Recognition flickered across Delgado's face. "Mr. Townsend, I apologize for this interruption. You're clear to board immediately." Monroe stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, I haven't completed my—" "Your what, Monroe?" Delgado cut him off sharply. "Your targeted harassment of a passenger who's already cleared security. This stops now." Monroe's face flushed deep red. "You don't understand. These procedures are in place to be applied equally to all passengers," Delgado finished. "Yet witness accounts suggest you've only stopped Mr. Townsend. Care to explain that disparity?" Monroe fell silent, his justifications exhausted. Imani Reed, the civil rights attorney, approached Delgado. "I've documented the entire interaction. This appears to be a clear case of racial profiling, one of many I've witnessed in airports across the country." The elderly gentleman nodded. "In 15 years of flying this route, I've only seen people of color subjected to these random checks." Throughout the exchange, Malik maintained his composure, his face revealing nothing of the storm of emotions, anger, humiliation, resignation, that surely raged within. His stillness spoke volumes about a lifetime of similar encounters, each requiring the same careful navigation. Delgado turned to Malik. "Mr. Townsend, please accept my deepest apologies. I assure you this incident will be thoroughly investigated." He handed Malik his business card. "My direct line is on there. I'd appreciate speaking with you after your flight about what happened here today." As Malik finally moved toward the aircraft door, Delgado's voice stopped Officer Monroe from slipping away. "You'll report to my office immediately after this flight departs." 3 hours after landing in Atlanta, Malik Townsend sat in his home office, reviewing the footage from the jet bridge. His finger hovered over the post button for several moments before he pressed it. "Today at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, I experienced what countless others face daily," his caption read. "This isn't about me. It's about a system that judges some travelers as suspicious based solely on skin color. I'm sharing this not from anger, but from the belief that accountability creates change." By morning, the video had been viewed 1.2 million times. News outlets picked up the story by noon. By evening, Malik's phone wouldn't stop ringing with interview requests. The airport's PR team issued a standard statement about investigating the incident and taking appropriate action, but the public demanded more. "What happened to Mr. Townsend isn't an isolated incident," explained Dr. Jamila Washington, director of the Center for Transportation Equity, during a primetime interview. "Our research shows black passengers are 4.5 times more likely to be selected for random secondary screening than white travelers with identical profiles." A week after the incident, leaked internal documents revealed the existence of a program called Jet Bridge Interdiction, an unofficial practice allowing certain officers to conduct discretionary stops after passengers had cleared formal TSA checkpoints. "The data is damning," reported the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. "Of how 267 jet bridge stops conducted at Hartsfield-Jackson over the past year, 842 targeted black passengers. Yet these stops resulted in only 7 minor violations, none related to flight safety. Malik declined most interview requests, instead using his platform and resources strategically. He gathered 15 other business leaders and formed the Air Travel Equality Initiative, providing legal support to victims of airport discrimination and advocating for transparency in security protocols. Mr. Townsend turned what could have been just another viral moment into meaningful action, noted Congressman James Lewis during a House Transportation Committee hearing. His coalition has collected over 300 testimonials, revealing a pattern of abuse that demands federal intervention. When the Department of Transportation announced a formal investigation into discriminatory practices at 12 major airports, Malik was invited to testify. "I stood on that jet bridge as 2 people," he told the packed hearing room. "First, as a successful businessman accustomed to being underestimated, but more importantly, as one link in a long chain of black Americans who must constantly prove their right to exist in spaces others take for granted." Rafael Delgado, now promoted to Chief of Security Operations after his handling of the incident, implemented comprehensive reforms: body cameras for all officers, elimination of subjective stops, mandatory bias training, and monthly demographic audits of all passenger interactions. Officer Monroe was terminated after a review found a pattern of discriminatory stops throughout his career. More significant than policy changes, however, was the national conversation Malik's experience ignited. Schools incorporated the incident into discussions about modern discrimination. Corporate diversity trainers used it to illustrate how bias operates in professional settings. Community organizations created Know Your Rights campaigns for air travelers. "The most powerful weapon against injustice is documentation," Malik explained in his first major interview, 3 months after the incident. "When we record these moments, we transform private humiliation into public accountability." If you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their appearance, comment, "Respect first" below and share this video. Together, we can ensure that stories like Malik's become catalysts for lasting change rather than forgotten headlines. 1 year after the jet bridge confrontation, Malik Townsend stood before a crowd at the opening of the Atlanta Community Innovation Hub, the very project he'd been planning before his flight home turned into a national movement. "Sometimes," he told the gathered crowd, "our greatest contributions come from moments we never chose." The Air Travel Equality Initiative had grown beyond its original mission. 6 major airports had overhauled their security protocols, implementing transparent screening criteria and independent oversight committees. Congress had passed the Fair Transit Act, requiring all transportation authorities to collect and publish data on passenger screening demographics. Most importantly, a reporting system now existed for travelers to document discriminatory treatment, with direct pathways to legal assistance and regulatory review. "The true measure of change isn't policy, it's experience," Malik explained during a leadership conference. "When a black traveler moves through an airport without that knot of anxiety in their stomach, wondering if there'll be the random selection again, that's real progress." Malik had transformed his company's mission as well. Townsend Solutions now dedicated a division to developing monitoring systems for public institutions, helping identify patterns of bias in everything from loan applications to hospital admissions. "What happened to me was not unique," Malik often reminded audiences. "What was unique was having the resources and platform to demand accountability. True justice means everyone has that power, not just those privileged enough to be heard." The ripple effects continued spreading. Law schools used his case in civil rights curriculum. Security training programs incorporated the footage as an example of bias in action. Community organizations created Know Your Rights workshops based on the incident. Malik's quiet dignity in that moment of crisis had accomplished what rage never could: systematic, measurable change. This channel is dedicated to stories of courage in the face of injustice. People who transformed personal adversity into community victory. If you want more stories that inspire change, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Together, we're building an archive of hope for future generations. Because Malik Townsend's story teaches us the most powerful lesson of all. When we stand firm in our dignity, even our darkest moments can become light for others. The greatest legacy isn't wealth or achievement. It's how we use our experiences to create the world we wish existed all along.